recently released two key features for banking. So RightTool is this little blue bar that sits on the right hand side, and under settings there's a whole bunch of things you can turn off and on, and there's like 30 features in RightTool, but right now we're going to focus on three things. We're going to focus on reconcile buttons, bank feed buttons, and bank feed descriptions. Those are three things related to banking that I think will help you. Okay, so I'm going to go into my transaction screen, and yes, I am skipping sort of through more of the fundamental stuff, but I want to make sure that we have clarity around what is what the app can do versus what QuickBooks Online sort of can't on its own. So the first thing is in QuickBooks Online Banking, there is a feature called Show Bank Details. So when you have Show Bank Details turned off, one of the issues that you have, like it is right now, is that you only see QuickBooks' cleaned up version of the payee list. Right now, you see that in red. That's not a native QuickBooks Online feature. We added that through RightTool. And basically what it does is it shows you whatever's in the memo. It brings it up to the top. So now you can visually, without having to click and open it, you can see that. Now, if you were to click on Show Bank Details and just for a minute just assume that red stuff is not there, you would see the whole bank details, but you don't see QuickBooks' cleaned up sort of helper version of the payee name. And that's a really important piece because that helper version of the payee name sometimes brings a lot of valuable context. So the solution that we came up with RightTool is for you to turn off Show Bank Details. That way you can see both the cleaned up version and the bank details all sort of in the same line or in the same row per se. That way, that combined context of what QuickBooks thinks the vendor is and what the actual payee is, that helps. Like for example, this is a good example. Like this vendor name right here that you see is the Latin Fork. That's literally the name of the restaurant that I went to, and I paid with my credit card. Now, because as part of the memo, my name is in there, somehow QuickBooks thinks the payee name is my name, which is obviously completely wrong. So this cleaned up version of QuickBooks' payee name sometimes hinders more than it helps, but sometimes it helps. Like for example, Fandango, this worked, right? It took all this crap per se, like just a bunch of extra information, and it somehow got Fandango from there, and that's a beautiful thing. You want QuickBooks to sort of guess some of these payee names correctly, but sometimes it doesn't do it right. So what we think we've done with RightTool is sort of be in that perfect happy medium where you get a little bit of both, best of both worlds. So that's sort of the first relevant thing with banking that RightTool does. The other thing that we do is here in the gear menu, you have this option here called turn on grouping. I love that function. I use it all the time. Turn on grouping allows me to group my transactions based on date or description or payee, that's if there's already a payee, or no payee, if there's no payee currently, by spent versus paid, okay, and by assigned to, if there's already something assigned to it. So I usually sort these. The most common thing that I do is I sort them by description. So this sort by description is great because QuickBooks will resolve what it thinks the cleaned up vendor is. And the nice thing about having it on this mode, on the mode where you don't show the bank details, is that it's going to group and organize by the cleaned up version of the QuickBooks sort of AI description, but you still get to see the details. And then you can even collapse these and choose which one you want to work with. So you can actually manually click and collapse any of these if you want to sort of sort and group that. One thing I'm going to go into, let me see a page a little deeper into it. Let me choose a different account here. So one of the things that's kind of a pain is having to manually, and I'm literally moving my mouse and coming in there and manually clicking on each one. So collapsing these sometimes is a pain in the butt, especially when I'm seeing, maybe not 50 transactions, maybe I'm seeing 300 transactions. I'll reset to 300 so you see, how much more painful it would be for you to come in here. And again, click on each one and start collapsing them, right? So what we did is we added through RightTool this little button here that says open and close groups. So when you click on open and close groups, it's like a little macro. I click on that and I just sit and watch, and then QuickBooks is actually manually closing the hands up like hands free. Okay, it's actually going in there and closing them all for me one by one. Again, some people see the value on having this happen, right? Where you want to collapse these and then maybe just expand them one by one. Again, this is happening. There's a lot of things to collapse, but this is saving you having to collapse each one. And there's some relevance here. So when it comes to checks are a little bit more painful. But when you collapse them all, that allows you to quickly scroll up and down and choose like which one you want to work on. So I want to work on these American Business Inc., or I want to work on AM Management or AFLAC or ADP. So it allows me to sort of go directly through like what I want to work on, and then I would just expand, manually expand the ones that I do want to work on and the ones I do want to categorize. So and if I want to open them on, again, I'm going to switch this to 50 so the refresh, it's a little bit quicker. And I'm going to click here, it says open and close open groups, and it'll just open them all up for me. So again, QuickBooks Online does have a built-in sort of open all, collapse all. We added those two features in the banking feed with this app called RightTool, which is the app that I developed. The third thing I want to show you is I'm going to go into Reconcile. And this thing, it's a big game changer for people that are sort of in the middle of a bank reconciliation and they need to add an additional transaction. This is huge. So many times I'm sitting there in front of a reconciliation screen. I'm going through my bank statement and I notice that I'm missing one expense or one deposit or whatever, right? So whatever it happens to be, I'm missing something. And I have to get out of the screen to enter it. Like for example, if I'm missing a check, I would have to go into new and go into check. And the problem with this is I would either have to right click and go to open a new tab or new window, or if I forget to right click, I click on that, it closes my reconciliation screen. It's a pain in the butt. But even when I go right click and open new tab, which is the right way to do it, that way you don't lose your reconciliation window. When you go to the new window, it doesn't default the bank account that you were just working on. It defaults whatever last bank account was used, which is a pain in the butt. So you have to go in there and also choose the bank account. So it's like way too many steps to solve like a really quick issue. So what we've done is inside the bank rec screen. And again, if this doesn't excite you, you have no soul, like literally, right? Or at least, or maybe you're not enough of a QuickBooks power user to see the value of this. But I can quickly come in here and click on deposit right here. That red button, that's not a native QuickBooks Online tool. That's a RightTool add-on. So when I go to check from here, so I click check from here, it opens up a new tab. So I don't have to right click and go to a new tab, and it automatically pre-populates the account I was working on. Again, we're just shaving seconds here, but I think and I know that as a bookkeeper, we're competing against machines, we're competing against QuickBooks Live, we're competing against Pilot, we're competing against outsourced overseas bookkeepers, all this stuff. And the only way to truly compete is to shave 1 second here, 1 second there, and that's ultimately the goal for RightTools. So that's it.